Hello, friends. Charlotte from the Editing Bay here. Thank you so much for joining me for Season 2 of Rough Start. The first recording had a little bit of an issue where everything came out very pixelated. Don't know why that happened, but I did my best to replace at least the pictures and the text so you can all read and see what's going on. I apologize that it's not looking super fancy, but next time it'll be much prettier. Thank you guys. Enjoy the video.
Hello, you lovely lesser deities, and welcome to Season 2 of Rough Start, where we here at Rough Magic Games teach you how to play a different tabletop role-playing game every episode. That's right, we run through it so you don't have a rough start. My name is Charlotte, I use she, her pronouns, and I am a professional game master with Rough Magic Games, a collection of many more professional GMs for hire. If you're interested in playing a game with one of our game masters, be sure to check out roughmagicgames.com. If you already know who we are and love what we do, check out our Patreon. The link is in the doobly-doo below. I love exploring the wide world of pen and paper role-playing games, and I can't wait to take you all on this journey with me. Tonight, I am joined by...
Hi, I'm Sarah Moore. My pronouns are she, her, and you can find me all over the internet at Pixies and Pins. I most often am seen on Gen Con TV, where I have a show called Sarah's Table, where I run indie and small publisher RPGs on Friday nights. But I am also the co-designer of The Crowned, which we're going to talk about today.
Amazing. Yes, thank you so much for joining me tonight, Sarah. I am so excited to be talking about The Crowned tonight. I've never played The Crowned, but from what I understand, it is a genre-blending, narrative-driven TTRPG where players step into the role of characters gifted the mantle of godhood. Horror, surrealism, intrigue, and fantasy are built on a backdrop of advanced tech science fiction that forms a world in which players' imagination will shape the reality of the game. To quote formerly Feral Games' website about the game.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah,
um,
absolutely.
just so I'm not plagiarizing, I'm citing my sources.
That's so nice of you. Thank you.
You're welcome. The Crowned was published by the aforementioned formerly Feral Games in 2023. So it's a little baby game,
It's
and
a little baby.
it's a little baby. So obviously, I've just said that I have not had experience playing this game, and you have just said you co-created this game. So
Yes.
speak on that a little bit.
Yeah. This has been a long time coming. It actually is. We've been working on it for about 7 years in one way or another. It started as a concept that was going to be a NaNoWriMo book that my business partner Damon Bedhe started, and he wrote a gajillion words, and there was no plot. There was only lore and world building. And then he was like, I think this is maybe a game setting. And we tried to write it as a setting so that it would end up just being like that we could skin, maybe it's going to be a 5e setting or something. And then we were like, no, we're playing gods, that's overpowered. And so we tried to come up with a couple of different god games that were already out, and we were like, we've changed so many of the rules. We're starting from scratch. It is now its own thing. Yeah, and then we just sort of dragged it kicking and screaming over the finish line, and now you can buy it and play it, which I'm very excited about.
Amazing. Show off that physical book one more time because it is so pretty.
Isn't it pretty? Yeah,
It's
it's a
beautiful.
big boy. It's about 200 pages, full color. We have one artist that did the whole book, cover to cover, including the cover. And it's full color all the way throughout, and just chock full of, I think there are 70 pieces of art in it sprinkled throughout. And it's just really pretty. I like looking at it.
Amazing. I like looking at it as well. I think
Mhm.
I should have picked up a physical copy of it when I was at Fan Expo and you guys were selling it, but alas, I did not. I'll have to
I
grab it
understand.
another time.
I mean, I've got a copy. I can sell you a copy. I have that
Yes.
power.
Nice. Beautiful. Amazing. I so look forward to spending more money
Perfect.
on TTRPGs. My bookshelf is full.
Listen, it could be worse. You could be addicted to something bad for your health and
Yeah.
not
Yeah, no,
like
I'm
things that enrich your brain. So
yeah, it's like what they used to say when you were a weeaboo in like 2007, Pocky is my anti-drug, but
that's right.
TTRPGs are my anti-drug.
It's my
Um,
anti-drug.
yeah. Amazing. Well, I think with that little spiel, we can go ahead and get into the details of the crown itself.
Awesome.
We normally start with lore on Rough Start, so
Oh
let's hop
boy.
into it. We have a beautiful picture of the cover that we can put on our slideshow as well. There we go.
Yes,
There
yeah.
we go.
Let me tell you a little bit, just a little peek. So the character that is on the cover is Litri, and he is the god of paint and paper. And the thing he is on is a bridge that is made entirely out of paper that he like handcrafted, and then he keeps covering it with paint. And keeps coming up with new colors of paint. And so he just, as soon as he gets from one end to the other, he starts again. So like it's constantly being changed with the colors. Because there's just when the longer you've been a god, um,
The more bored you get, probably.
well, and the further you get from your humanity, and so it makes you a little crazy.
A little funky.
And he's been a god for like thousands of years. So he's got some quirks. There's a
I
couple of
love that. I
quirks.
mean, we all have our quirks, but even the gods.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
love that.
What sort of lore would you like? There's so much.
Yeah, I want to know. So, obviously, we play as an actual factual god in this game.
Correct.
Someone who was once human, but was chosen to ascend into godhood.
Hmm.
Um, I want to know a little bit more about the Shining Garden, which I think we have a picture of on the next slide,
Let's take a
if
look.
memory serves.
Yeah,
Yes.
so the Shining Garden is a massive city. Um, it is suspended over the ocean by like a tiny spire. Um, and that is a rail line, that ritual rail, which heads out to the city. The city is divided into 10 districts. 10 is a very important number for everything in this game. So it's divided into 10 districts, and it's just filled with regular mortals and gods of all levels, including 10 very important gods who are so powerful that their purview grows out of their head like crowns, which is where the name of the game came from, the crown.
Whoa, title drop. Boom. Amazing. Got it in
Did it.
one.
Yeah, nailed it. But one of the things that we thought was really interesting about this is it is very dangerous outside the city. And so we have forced you into a spot that you can't really leave. So if you were in like a lot of other games that we play, a lot of other RPGs, adventuring games, you sort of roll through a city and you cause destruction. And then you're like, bye. And then you keep going. And you don't really have to deal with any consequences. But in this game, because of how dangerous it is outside the cities, um, you live and work and exist in the area that you are adventuring in all the time. And so there's a lot of things that you could do as a god because you have access to god powers, but there's always a stronger god that is very close that can keep you in check. So there's a lot of
Yes.
checks and balances in the
There's always a
system.
bigger fish.
There,
Um,
yes,
yeah, from my understanding, like outside of the Shining Garden, and there are a few other like cities in the setting as well, but it's like the aftermath of some sort of horrible war. There's demons and monsters out there. Um,
absolutely.
do adventures ever like take your characters out there to fight monsters or
Yeah. So you can go outside of the city. That's actually an expansion that we are working on.
Ooh, oh, look,
To
I
be
set you up
able,
and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah, there's stuff outside the city that is pretty horrific and very dangerous even for gods. Um, but yeah, there's been a very long timeline in the world that we are slowly doling out. Um, and it- something happened that created demons, and they sort of ran wild, and so humanity and gods came together, and there's protection around all of the cities. So as long as you are within the city and as long as you are on the rail line itself, then you are safe. But anything outside of that be a problem. And that's one of the reasons why the Shining Garden is out over the ocean. The god said it's much safer here, and they just like plucked it up and like scooted it over the ocean. And we're like, here you go. Now it's even safer here because you can't get to it. So
Amazing. Fantastic. So you mentioned the 10 kind of boss gods,
yes,
the Clade.
correct.
Um, I want to touch that the player characters, when you start out, are bonded to one of these gods. So they're granted a sphere of influence by these gods. Um,
Yes.
so again,
And
there's
it's
always a bigger fish for sure.
always a bigger fish, yeah. And none of the clade, I would say, are what you would say is nice. They're not nice people. Um, they're like wildly powerful, and some of them are horrifying to look at. Rhyme is the god of madness, and he's so scary. I'm just gonna hold him up. He's so scary. Yeah,
I know when I was
his,
flipping through the PDF, I was like, oh, some of these guys look mean.
yeah,
Some of these
yeah.
guys look mean.
His crown is made up of the fingers of his followers,
Ugh.
which means that if you are a follower of the god of madness or you are bonded to the god of madness, sometimes your finger just disappears and shows up on his head. Very scary.
Hmm.
Yeah, but they're also pretty fickle, and so they serve as your character class. And being bonded to one of them gives you bonuses to some of your skills, some of your attributes. They give you an extra wonder or two. And if you, they might get tired of you, and they might trade you like baseball cards. And if they trade you to another god, it reworks your whole character sheet because it's you would be better at certain things because you're sort of imbued with that god's power instead. Doesn't necessarily mean that it would
Love
change
that.
what you were the god of, but it could change how you are able to access those powers.
That is so cool. Um, Amazing. The last thing I want to touch on for the lore of the crown, is once again a quote I pulled right from the book because I liked it so much. Do you hold tight to your humanity, defending that which you once were, or do you lean into your divinity, growing ever stronger until you and your purview are all but indistinguishable? I love
Yeah,
when games just write the theme of the game.
it's right
It
there.
makes it very easy to
Yeah.
incorporate into your stories. So thank
Well,
you.
and I think it's really interesting because like my partner Damon and I play games very differently and we run games very differently. And so when I play this game, I play the God of Joy. And as we were talking about it, I said, it's great because I can like make everyone around me feel joy all the time. And he said, or you can make them never feel joy again.
Two
And
extremely different.
two extremely different things, but that is because you have power over your purview, you can decide how that manifests itself. So even if you ended up having two people in two different games who happen to be like choosing the same purview, they're going to be wildly different because it's all about what you can come up with and how you do it. So I think that's cool.
Fantastic. Is there anything you want to add about the lore before we move on to the basic mechanics?
There's just like so much little cool stuff baked in. Um, one of the things, and I know we're going to talk about it later, is rituals. Like that's a thing that can happen, and a lot of the city has been shaped by rituals that have gone wrong. So like
Mm.
there's a whole district called Tumblebell Park that is overrun with giant mushrooms because somebody messed up a ritual and it is continuing to expand and it has to be like chopped back
Oh.
every year because it just keeps going and going. There's also a god who did a ritual wrong and blew himself up and he turned into like yellow powdery dust and now he's all over the artist district forever. And so
Oh man.
like there's just little bits of stuff like that kind of peppered throughout the city that we mention in the book and like if we were it would be 1,000 pages long if we were able to like fully explain all of them. And so like I'm it's just really cool to be able to like talk about the little bits when you're going because there's so much. So yeah, richly lored place.
And to learn about all those fun little bits in the game, you've got to buy the book,
Buy
audience,
the book.
and play the game.
Do it.
Amazing. Yeah, let's head on over to the basic mechanics if we want to get to that
Okay.
next slide.
Love that.
So once again, this book is just apparently very quotable. I don't normally add quotes from the book in this, but I just like this one again. All the mechanics presented in this section are intended to be flexible, changeable, or ignorable.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. We don't want the mechanics to get in the way of you telling your story. In fact, our game master is not referred to as a game master, it's referred to as a storyteller because we just love the world so much that we want to make sure that you are going to get immersed in it. And if a rule at the table is too clunky for you and you're having too hard of a time understanding it, it's getting in the way, like get rid of it.
Go watch it.
Yeah. Who needs them?
Yeah. I think very good mindset to have. I mean, that being said,
Yeah.
we can talk about those specific mechanics. What sort of dice are you rolling in the crown?
It is all D6s. It is a D6 dice pool game. Which is fun because sometimes that means you get to roll like a bajillion dice, which is a favorite of mine.
I always think that's very fun as well. I have
Just
some friends who
like
don't like
it.
dice pools, and I'm like, you are wrong. You're just
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, maybe you haven't played the correct dice pool game, I
Yeah,
think.
maybe you have to play the crown.
Maybe play the crowns. Yeah, so you would do a skill check by combining a stat and a skill, and you have like might, reflex, brains, and presence. And then those are your stats, and then you can combine that with one of your skills, which you can also have a specialization in. And the numbers next to it create your dice pool, and then you are looking for fives and sixes. Fives and sixes are successes, and sixes explode indefinitely. So you can roll 3 dice and get, 10 successes if you're really lucky with your dice rolls. So sixes could just explode forever.
Yes, amazing. And for those in our audience who may not be in the know, can you explain what a die exploding means?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So when you roll a 6 in our game, it means you get to roll it again. And as long as you keep getting sixes, you could keep rolling it forever.
And
It's
adding and adding and adding.
and adding and adding. Yeah. And only sixes explode unless you have a specialization, which allows your fives to explode on your first roll as well.
Ooh. Very exciting.
I just like
I
rolling so many dice.
I also love rolling so many dice. So I feel you. And I did want to just put the graph of the challenge difficulty up here because I feel like
Oh,
every new system is like what should be the target. So just simple is 1 to 2 successes. So again, if you're rolling 3 dice, 1 to 2 successes seems very doable.
yeah.
10 or more successes on 3 dice is a little more difficult. It's a little more difficult.
Not impossible, but like very improbable.
Yeah.
But could happen.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. The god of luck,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
cross our fingers. Yeah.
Probably fine.
Yeah, well, speaking of stats and skills,
Yes.
I think I've got our stats on the next slide here. Yeah, there we go. Do you want to talk about the kind of the stats of this game?
Yeah. Stats first, right?
Yes.
Great. So stats, it has 4 stats: might, reflex, brains, and presence. Might is anything that is physical. Um, it's your body attributes, like big muscly things. Reflex is your agility and how quick you can react to things, how fast you move. Brains, unsurprisingly, is your brains. Anything mental. And then presence is a combination of like your moxie and your divine presence, your divinity, how you can affect things using strictly your god stuff. It is one of my favorites. Also, one of the things that you can do in this game, which I love because I will always give myself an extra challenge, is that you can start with a 0 in one of your stats. You can have nothing. When I built my character, she's got 0 in might. Don't need it. She's going to solve her problems a different way. It is a problem if somebody comes in swinging at the start, but you don't need to have like a base number in any of these stats. You can just be like, well, I'm just really smart and I have no reflexes. So 0 for my reflex, and we're gonna pump up the other ones. So I really like that.
Yeah.
And because we sort of encourage the players to argue with the storyteller, not argue, advocate for themselves.
That's a very important distinction.
Yes,
Advocating for yourself is always a good thing.
advocate for myself. So if they say, like, I think I need a brains plus notice check, for example, then you don't have anything in brains, but you have pretty high in presence. You could say, I really think that I would be using my godly awareness. Instead of rolling brains plus notice, can I please roll presence plus notice? And you can adjust things like that. It might adjust the target number or whatever, but like as a player, we want you to be thinking about how you would be using your stats versus how I think you should use your stats. That makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I love that. I love that mentality. I think that's a very good way to, because you're playing a god,
Play the
why
guide.
not? Why
You
not
should be able to do a
dictate?
bunch of crazy stuff. Like, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of doing crazy stuff, let's talk about those skills next. Boom, transition into
Oh
our next
boy.
slide.
It's like we practiced this. We're doing
Uh,
great.
Yeah, and it's in audience. We in fact did not practice any of
Did
this,
not.
so
It's just
just letting you
flowing
guys
so
know
nice.
out there. um,
So there are 10 skills. Because 10 is important. 10 districts, 10 cities, 10 clade members, 10 skills, 10 times the work for my partner and I when we were putting everything together. Why do we do it? Um, so we have endure, exert, fake, hit, impress, know, which is KNOW, make, notice, sneak, and weird. I think most of them pretty self-explanatory. Endure and exert, depending on how you're doing things, could be sort of changeable. You could argue for
mhm,
one or the other.
mhm.
Endure is having to hold something very heavy up for a very long time. You're sort of enduring that, but it also could be mental stimulation that you're enduring, or a whole bunch of heat, something like that. Whereas exert is like running, jumping, climbing trees. Um, but you could probably argue for the other one. Not a lot of people put high things in endure. It gets it gets skipped over a lot, which I think is very
Oh,
interesting.
well, I mean, unless you're the god of endurance.
I would love to see somebody play that. That would be amazing.
Hey, maybe
Get on
if
it,
we
audience.
yeah. Maybe that'll be my
Yep.
character if we play the crown.
I would love that. It would be amazing. Weird is a great one because it is all the things that have to do with anything that would be considered supernatural or godly. So if you have a high score in weird, you probably sort of flex your divine muscle quite a bit. Probably like not a very subtle god. You're probably way out there all the time, which I love. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for describing the skill list so I don't have to. I think you're doing amazing work.
So
Let's
much.
we can move on to kind of a unique aspect of the crown, your ether pool or aether pool. How
Aether
do you pronounce
pool.
it? Aether
I
pool. All right.
Aether. But I call it, and my partner hates it, and but he's not here. So I call it your god juice. Because that's
Yeah,
what it is.
it's
It's your
god
god
juice.
juice.
Yeah.
So you have an aether pool that you can pull from, and you can do a lot of things with your aether pool. It can be used to soak your damage. Like if somebody comes up and smacks you with something, your aether can soak it so that your fragile, used to be human body doesn't take any damage. You can pay in advance to just succeed on a challenge roll. But only if your dice pool would have been big enough to succeed. So if I need you to have 5 successes and you have 6 in your dice pool, you can just pay for 5. You could just pay 5 and have succeeded. But this is not a take a nap at the end of the day and be totally refilled the next morning kind of system.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns into this resource management where it feels like you have a whole lot. At first level, you have 50 aether points. That's so
5-0.
much. It feels
Yeah.
5-0. It feels like so much. But if you go in and you start doing you're paying for challenge rolls because so that you don't have to roll, and you start doing a bunch of rotes, which is like the divine spells that you build.
Mm-hmm.
Those all cost aether. You can go down to nothing pretty quicky.
Yeah. And that's
And
not
then
great for your godliness to go down to nothing.
not great. You don't like pass out or anything. You just can't access your god powers anymore, which is the whole point that you want to be doing. So you have to be aware of it.
Yes, amazing. Yes, so going down to 0 on your aether pool is not a good idea.
It's not great. You are still, I would like to stress that you are still able to do challenge rolls. You can still participate and play, but you don't have any oomph to pull on anymore if you have gotten down to 0.
Yeah, no more rituals, no more wonders for you for the most part.
Yep.
And we'll get into rituals and wonders a little bit later as well.
They're good. But you can like I said, you don't get to take a nap and have it all come back. But once a day, every 24 hours, you get some back. And every god's is a little bit different because it all depends on like how many worshippers that you have. Because the mortals in there are their attention is feeding into you like a battery. So you get 10 every day just because you're a god. And you get another 5 if you are bonded to one of the clade. So like baseline, you would get 15 always. But then there's other ways that you can increase them. Like there are several wonders that you can have that are about followers, called Dearly Devoted. And there are several tiers of those. And the more tiers that you have of those, like the more you get every day. You get some for having like a dedicated shrine to you. You get some for having effectively a cult if you have a cult. Like really zealous followers, you get more. So there's lots of ways to boost it, but minimum you're getting 15 a day.
Yes.
Which is great, but also only 15. So
yeah. 50 versus 15.
Yep.
That you reminded me though of I'm going to sidetrack a little bit. Speaking of cults, I do want to point out that the Crowned does a very lovely thing where, it sequesters all of its mature topics into a little chapter on its own.
Yes.
So there are, some darker aspects that can come with godhood, but they are not necessary to running a game in the Crowned. If you want to add them, that is totally cool, and it is there in the book, but it is not necessary. So I was just reminded of that. I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, and it's called The Crowned After Dark, and all the pages are also dark, so that it's very easy to see in the book. And because if you want it to be very dark and horror driven, it's very easy for this game to be that at your table. But if it needs to be lighter because you and your table would like to have something that is not quite so bloody, for lack of a better term, it supports that as well. You don't have to get sacrificey. You don't want to get sacrificey.
Amazing. Yeah, it's just the sacrifices are optional, okay, people?
It's
It's no need to make a big
optional.
fuss about things.
That's right.
Beautiful. We're not monetized on YouTube, so we can say whatever we want. We can say sacrifice as many times as we want.
Whoops.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the scenes and situations and controlled situations versus stressed situations.
Oh, yes.
Which I believe is on the next slide, is a little description. There we go.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people would see this as like non-combat versus combat, but it's not necessarily just that. It sort of encompasses a little bit extra. Obviously, if you were in a combat situation, that is a stressed situation, and so you have to use more aether to get the same effect on something that you're trying to do, because it's more dire. There's more pressure on you.
Yeah.
And that could be combat, but that could also be like a very tense conversation with a clade member, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That could be very stressful to have you in there. It covers not just you're punching each other. There are other stressful things that happen in everyone's life that is not just threat of violence. And so it is sort of at the storyteller's discretion to say whether you were in a stressed situation. I think a really good example is we were doing something in a game recently that had a literal countdown clock, and nobody was punching each other, but it was stressed. Like
Very
it was
stressful. Something's
happening. And so it cost everybody a little bit of extra stuff because they were trying to literally beat the clock. So a lot of this is what the storyteller wants. And obviously that the players never want it to be stressed, because then it is more expensive.
Yes.
So they're like, no, I'm very calm. I'm very chill. I'm good. You don't need to.
Yes. So, yeah, stress situation can make certain things more expensive, cost more resources in the game. What are some of the other like effects mechanically, the differences between controlled and stressed?
So you see it most in rote building. There's a whole chapter. Rotes are like your divine spells, and it was really hard to have a spell list, for example, because you can be the god of anything, and that would be just incredibly difficult to try to come up with
literally
a list.
Thousands of spells, infinite
thousands
number of
and
spells.
Thousands of spells. Yeah. And so we came up with the rote system, And you can see the difference between controlled and stressed the best in that.
Amazing. Well, what an amazing coincidence, because next up is Rotes on my
Oh,
slides. So we can click over to the Rote and see what that's about.
Yeah. So, if something needs to happen that you can't just roll a check about, right? Like I can't, if I want to, if I am the god of kicking someone to the moon, generally I cannot do just a regular challenge roll for that. Like this is gonna involve some other things, and so I say I'm gonna invest some aether. I'm gonna kick this dude to the moon. He's in my way. So then I get to build my spell components. So we have, not surprisingly, I think 10. Why would we? But conjure, damage, distance, duration, guard, learn, scope, and wild card, which is great. But you can put everything together. So if you are kicking someone to the moon, you want to do damage. You're going to put a couple of ranks in damage. You're going to put some ranks in distance because you want them to go really far.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
If you want him to take a while to get there, instead of having it be instantaneous, you could put a couple ranks in duration. And if you want to kick multiple people to the moon at the same time, you could add in scope. Because then you can scoop in some extra people.
Perfect.
Now, if you are not the god of kicking someone to the moon, but you're the god of kicking, you would probably end up adding in a little bit of wild card because it is adjacent to the thing that you are doing. Just add a little bit of wild card is a little. I feel like wild card is the thing that we have made so that when a player comes up with something really cool, but it's not really what they're good at, that we can be like, I want you to not be able to do that. But like, you're going to have to pay a little extra to do it because it's not technically your purview.
I think that's
so
a good
that is
compromise.
wild card. Yeah. But we have 2 for each of those things that I mentioned. We have a controlled situation and a stressed situation chart. And the stressed is much more clamped in on everybody.
Well, because it's stressful. It makes perfect
stressful. Sense. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest part of the problems. Also, I think in a stress situation, you would probably need more successes on a challenge roll than in a relaxed situation where you can take your time, kind of do whatever you need. Yeah. Anything that could potentially have a time limit will make everything harder.
Yes. Fantastic. And touching on the kind of like the basic steps we've got on the screen right now, deciding the outcome of the rote is I love that it's step 1 because you have to decide what you want the rote to do. It is your
what
goal.
You want it to. Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the actual outcome when you roll, perhaps, but that is the goal of the rote. Determine if the situation is controlled or stressed. Pick the degrees, which you mentioned, all of those lovely, the 10 charts in the book.
Yeah, so many charts.
Yep. And the degrees and whether it's controlled or stressed determines how much aether you calculate to spend.
Correct.
And then you roll to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, and one of the things that we wanted to make sure happened in this game is that it always succeeds. It just might succeed with a complication. Because there's nothing worse for me, like my partner and I, when we were talking about it, of like when you are playing a spellcaster and you set up a spell and you like roll and just miss and then nothing happens. And it's like, but we're gods. It should happen. It just might not happen how you want it to happen.
Mhm.
And so that is always like I don't know, I don't think threat is the right word, but it's always a possibility that you will say, I'm going to set fire to this statue with this rote. And then you roll major complication, which is a 1. And like, you absolutely set fire to that statue, but you also set fire to the entire square.
Oops.
Um, like, it's always going to happen. There's just so much flavor that we can give it as the storyteller.
Mhm. Yeah.
So good.
Love it. Oh, the flavor is delicious. Um, well, what if we want to keep the flavor going for longer? I think
Oh,
rituals. That was a really bad
rituals.
transition. I don't
No,
know.
I'll
I'm
take it. I'm
sorry.
going to take it.
Let's talk about rituals, the long version of a
The
road.
long version. Yeah. So, a ritual is if more than one god wants to do a divine spell together. Usually it's because it's too expensive for one god to do on their own. So you can put in your combined aether pools to do something that is big. It could take a couple of days to set up, it could be weeks to set up. Um, Something that you can do with it, like if your party has like a safe house, a really great idea of a ritual would be to like create a perimeter essentially that people could not get through or that
A
could
wa-
not see you
yeah.
or whatever. It's anything that you could not do as a god on your own,
Yes.
which feels like, oh, there's probably not much, but if you think about the fact that you only have, as a first level god, you only have 50 aether to work with a day. Like, oh,
It helps to have some more people on your side to stack up that aether for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
I think we've got rituals on the next slide too that we can click through. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Um, Also, rituals require components that rotes do not. Rotes can you're just using your own essence. Rituals, because they are more complex, involve more people. You need a circle. You need generally a piece of something that would correspond with the thing that you are trying to do. We've used rituals a lot as tracking. Like if you have a
Mm,
piece of something and you're trying to find the person or the god that it belonged to, that goes in the middle of the center of the circle as part of your ritual component. And then everybody pours a bunch of god juice into it to try to get where you're trying to go.
perfect.
You could also
Um,
like make a bomb.
and now for something completely different. Time to make a
God
bomb.
bomb. Just a little bit of god bombs, you know?
Yeah. God Bomb is my new band name. I am
Heck
trademarking that
yeah.
one. TM. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's all yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll give you credit for coming up with it for sure.
All right. All right. For front row seats. The first
Yes.
concert.
Amazing. Is there anything you want to add about just like the basic mechanics, what you need to know to start playing the Crowned?
I really think that the most important thing that you can hold on to going into this game as a player is that you should feel so empowered to always advocate for a better role for yourself. Like, we wanted so much player agency that I am going to say that if you are not an experienced GM, maybe this is not the first game that you run. Because it requires you to be so flexible with the rules because you want your table to feel comfortable enough to be like, I want to do this route. It's weird. Help me build it. What does it do now? And then, a bunch of things spin off from it. And I think just come in with your wackiest ideas. That is what we're looking for.
Yes. I mean, it sounds like teamwork is key in The Crown, not only between the players, but between the storyteller and the players as well.
Absolutely.
So I think that's, advocating for yourself, but also realizing that you are not alone at the table.
Yeah. I almost started singing there. That's good. just felt like you're a band. Everybody has an
Yeah.
important part in their band. In the band
And your
God Bomb.
name is God Bomb.
It's God Bomb. Love it.
Beautiful. I love that. Okay, so we've gotten all of that stuff out of the way. We've created God Bomb.
Yep.
Let's talk about character creation, who you are playing in The Crown. I've got the step-by-step on the next slide. We'll click over to it.
Yeah.
There we go. It's very tiny on the screen. I hope people can see it.
That's okay. We've got it.
Yeah. So step one is deciding what your purview as a god will be. So again, if you're the god of kicking people to the moon, that's your purview. The god
I
of
keep
joy.
suggesting that. Nobody has
Yeah.
taken me up on that yet, but I do feel like somebody should be the god of kicking people to the moon.
You might have to be the change you wish to see in the world.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, we do say we are in the process of doing merch and stuff, and one of the t-shirts is "Be the God you want to see in the world."
Oh, I need it.
Everybody needs it. Yeah, I think purview is really cool. We've had approximately 200 different gods at the table, and nobody has repeated yet, which is
How could you?
super fun.
When the feelings are infinite.
Because it's at anything, could be anything. And so it can be something that is very concrete that you can hold. I mean, like concrete, literally concrete. Or like it could be something more ephemeral, like god of the wind. Could be god of nostalgia. Like you can sort of pick emotions or things or mostly nouns, but but could also be verbs, we have the god of pettiness at a table, which is amazing.
I love that.
And because of the way we have balanced it, because everybody has the same aether pool, you could have like the god of bubblegum and the god of volcanoes in the same party, and there would not be a power imbalance because they all have the same amount of things to pull from.
Yeah. The only thing that limits you is your imagination on what rotes you can come
just
up
with. Here. Your brain. There's a table that my partner is running that has the god of liminal spaces in it.
The back which rooms.
Just wild. Like it's truly anything that you can come up with, and then just got to be comfortable like figuring out what that does and how you can make that happen. We had the god of nostalgia do a rote to make a stick remember what it used to be. And so then it turned into a treat. Like you can do stuff, right? Like it's all about how you can link it all up. So make sure when you're choosing your purview that it's something that you are jazzed about.
Mm-hmm.
That's really
beautiful. Amazing. So the next step after deciding what your purview as a god is to get into kind of the more mechanical side of it, your character ratings. This is where you'll spend some points to put into your stats, your skills, and your sundries. We'll get into the sundries a little bit later, but that's like your defenses as a character.
Correct. Real easy. 5 for stats, 10 for skills, nothing above a 3 at character creation, and you can have 0s.
Easy peasy. Look at that.
Easy peasy. Everybody can count up to 10
the way through. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I can only count to 5, so.
But you just do it twice.
Yeah. Oh, whoa! Hold on. This is a game changer for me.
Game changer.
Step 3 is choosing who among the crowned, the 10 gods in charge, you will be bonded
Yes.
to. You add their listed bonuses to your character sheet. I have an example of a god on the next slide that we'll get to, just kind of to show the examples of what you add to your character sheet. But we'll
Cool.
get through this list first. Um, with this though, and important, you just said it can't go above a 3. With the stuff from your bonded god, it can go above a 3.
Yeah, it can bump you up
Yeah, it can bump you up.
because they're very
Um,
strong.
Yeah, it turns out it's good to have a god on your side, for sure, even if
Oh,
it's temporary.
well, sometimes.
Okay, well, Step 4 would be to choose your sanctum.
Yeah, so your sanctum's like your house. It's your seat of power. It could literally be your house. Mine, as the god of joy, is my house, which has a bunch of really fun rooms, some of which are connected by slides and made out of stuffed animals and things. But we also have the god of cinnamon, who has his sanctum is a bar where he works. You could have
Alright.
there you could like we have the god of packaging, whose sanctum is a like paper shop. Um it can be a store, it can be a particular train car, so it moves around, but it is the same train car.
Mm.
There's you could have like a little okay. In one of the games I run, there's the god of things that no longer exist,
Ooh.
and his sanctum is a void. Like you can just like nope out into. Um this is maybe the first bit that you can be like, what defines my purview and who I am as a character? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is my happy place, my safe place? I'll have to come. The god of kicking people to the moon is maybe
It's the moon, clearly.
the moon. Interesting. That's especially interesting because there are 2 moons, and they are very different and both very inhospitable for different reasons.
The gear, I can see the gears turning. The gears
I
are
have
turning
so many
along.
ideas. I can't wait to run this. Okay, I'm listening. Sorry, continue.
Amazing. So, step 5, we have our wonders, which we have mentioned briefly in passing. You choose 2 level 1 wonders and 2 level 2 wonders and add them to your character sheet. Some of these cost things, so you do have to purchase them occasionally.
Yes.
So, let's extrapolate on wonders a little bit. To me, I would make a comparison between like feats in Pathfinder. They're like special things that your character um, can do, or something special about them. Like we mentioned, worship can be a wonder. So if you've got devoted followers, that is
Mhm.
something that would fall under a wonder.
Yeah. It's also like weapons and armor as well. You can buy your character wings, which you get to decide what they look like. You can buy your character an extra limb multiple times, and you can
Ooh,
decide what that looks like. We had the god of hair in one that I ran, and their extra limb was made of hair. So
makes
like
sense.
you can just have extra. The god of sock puppets has 2 extra limbs, so that they can have 4 sock puppets at all
Oh my
times
gosh.
should they
Oh
want
my
them.
gosh.
Um, yeah, I think there's also ways to increase your defense or your damage reduction. Like all of those things come from this one. Um, I also really love the high level ones. I think my very favorite one is called Incarnate,
Ooh.
and it is when your purview manifests itself so strongly around you that it causes damage.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a picture, an illustration of Incarnate, and it's the god of bubblegum, and it's just like bubblegum exploding out of him from far away.
Oh my
I don't
god,
know if you
I
can
love
see
it.
it. Is it close enough to see?
Oh, just barely. Yep. Oh, we
Just
got it. Oh
barely.
my gosh.
Yeah. So
Wow.
and depending on and it all does the same amount of damage whether you are the god of bubblegum or volcanoes. So if you're the god of volcanoes and you activate Incarnate, maybe just the volcano erupts wherever you are and
Yeah.
just does a bunch of
We
damage. Could be a lot.
yeah. Oh,
Um.
scary. Do the
Yeah.
wonders
Also,
go up to level 10?
they sure do.
Amazing. See, I'm
And
starting to get
yep.
it.
And the higher they go up, the more expensive they are if you're gonna purchase them. Plus they all have really fun names. I love being able to name them. Sometimes they were a name first, and then we were like, all right, well now, what is it gonna do? A really good one is Thanks It Has Pockets, which just gives you like a little interdimensional pocket that you can have, and you can
Perfect.
store whatever you want in it. Good stuff.
Amazing. Yes, thank you for that little snapshot into wonders. There are a lot of them in the book, so it is
So many.
definitely very fun to go and read through all of them and decide what you want your character to have and be able to do.
Yes.
Our second to last step is to do some math. So there is math in this game.
Some math, just a little bit.
Just a
Yeah.
little bit. You calculate your health pool total, which is your divinity level, which is basically if you are divinity 1, you're level 1 in the game. It's
Correct.
your level as a character.
Yep.
Plus might plus endure times 4.
Yeah.
Your aether
Minimum of
pool,
4.
minimum of 4.
I had a 4 at the beginning
Oh,
when I was level 1.
oh, oh, just so don't hurt me.
It's a
I'm just a
little
little guy.
it's a little squishy.
That aether pool total, as we've mentioned, is at level 1 starts at 50, so it's your divinity times 50.
Mm-hmm.
So then at level 2 it becomes 100, which is
Becomes
a nice little
100.
big bump. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. The Clade are like epic level. And so they
Hmm.
just have essentially if the storyteller ever plays a Clade member, they have an unlimited amount of Aether at their disposal. It's a good idea to not get in a fight with a Clade member. Unless
Yeah.
you want to go out in a blaze of glory. That's fine too, I guess.
That is, we'll get into death later when we do combat and
Yes.
conflicts, so we'll definitely touch on that. Additionally, you do calculate your daily Aether replenishment, so as we mentioned, it will be probably at least 15 for most characters.
Yeah.
And then you choose any skill specializations, 1 per rank in brains, if you have any brains.
Yeah.
And as Sarah mentioned, the specializations let your dice explode on a 5 as well.
Yeah. It's very handy.
Absolutely,
I like it.
incredibly handy.
And specializations, for an example, under hit, if you have ranks in hit, let's say that you're kind of we had the god of glass, and his sanctum was a bar. And he had like 4 ranks in hit, and he had a specialization in bar fights. And so if you were doing that and you could like convince the DM that it's a bar fight, even if you're not in a bar, then you get to use your but I use this technique because there are tables around and I'm used to having, to fight around that. Great. Then you can use your specialization on your first roll. Your 5s will also explode.
Beautiful. It helps to be a salesperson in this game, for sure.
Absolutely.
Selling skills. After doing some math, we are so close to done. Step 7 is your final details. So your character's name, a description of them, what district in the Shining Garden you live in, any other little touches that will make you feel closer to your character.
Yeah. The cool thing about being a god, one of the things I usually like to ask my characters, my players, is how long have you been a god? Are you a fresh god? Have you been a god a couple of weeks? Have you been a god for 200 years? Advancement, like mechanically, does not necessarily correspond directly with how long you have been a god. You could be a god and get really powerful really fast, or you could just like kind of hang out at a low level for a couple hundred years. And so one of the things that informs is how long you've been a god, is maybe how many people in the city that are still alive that are related to you or that you were close to. If you're fresh as a god, how has that affected your relationships with people around you? How much of your humanity have you lost? How much of your memory have you lost? If you've lived for a couple hundred years, all the things you've seen, what has that pushed out? What's still fuzzy that's kind of still there? It can help you with a lot of role-playing thoughts. Or you can just be like, I don't know, I've been a god for a week. I don't have any complex relationships. I just want to slap
I'm new in town.
I'm new in town. Ugh. Yeah. Also good.
Amazing. And with that, if you're following along at home, your character is done. Look at that. Amazing.
All done.
On the next slide, I do have an example of one of the clade that you can be bonded to, just because I wanted to add in a little example of the gifts that they give you if you do bond to them. So being bonded to Tempest, it provides bonuses to Might, Endure, Hit, Notice, and then your degree discount, so Damage Tier 1, and then Guard Tier 1 as well. And then you get a fun little...
Those make your rotes a little bit cheaper if you're putting in damage or guard, because he is a bruiser.
He's big.
He's a big guy. Yeah, he's made out of, if you can look at that picture, his horns and stuff, he's made out of like driftwood.
Hell yeah.
He got his job as the crowned god of weather and combat and all of that stuff. Because he killed the previous god of that.
Well, sometimes these things happen, you know?
And took over. It was just a hostile takeover.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
Yeah, a coup.
Yeah.
I love that so much. I mean, very in character. And bonding with the god also gives you an additional wonder. In this case, it is Primal Step.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's gross.
Just wanted to give that little example for the people following along at home. So
I'm going to take a second. My favorite of the crowned gods is Caprice.
Ooh.
They are my favorite. They are the crowned god of liquid, chance, discord, gaming, brawling, sex, hangovers.
I almost put Caprice on this slide.
Conflict, yeah, and parties. But the thing that you get for free when you bond to Caprice is dip a toe in, which will tell you about a liquid that you can then identify things about the liquid if you dip a toe in. And every time I have run it, they're like, I'm going to use dip a toe in. And I'm like, great. What are you going to dip in? And they're like, my tongue. I'm going to taste it. I'm like, no, the whole point is that you can like use your toe or your finger. Yeah, and they're like, I'm going to lick it.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right.
That's fine.
Great.
To each their own. But I feel like, I can taste liquids on my own without a wonder.
Do it on your own. Like, the whole point is that, like, it might be gross and you can just touch it and know things. Yeah. Their crown is fully liquid. And it kind of changes. It could be alcohol. It could be blood or other bodily fluids. Yeah.
Chocolate milk.
Could be chocolate milk.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. You're very, very lucky. Often you're not.
Ooh, well, we'll see. Unless I'm the god of luck. I'm just saying.
I'm so down for this. The god of luck and kicking people to the moon. Multi-purview. That's, by the way, something you can buy at level 10 is an additional purview.
Ooh.
Very expensive, but you can do it.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Amazing. I think with that, we should take a little break before we talk about conflicts and healing and death, among other things.
So many things.
So many things.
Great.
All right. We will see you, audience, after the break. Hello and welcome back to Rough Start. I hope you had a nice break. Before our break, we talked about the lore of the Crown along with the basic mechanics. We talked a little bit about character creation and the purviews of the gods as well. And now that we are back, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite thing in a system, conflict and combat and punching and kicking people to the moon.
Taking people to the moon.
Let's go.
That's what we should rename this section "Kicking People to the Moon."
Yeah, I'll do it on my notes right now at the very least.
Perfect.
Yeah, let's start at the very beginning as I change it to kicking people to the moon.
Yeah. I mean, first thing you got to do then is roll initiative, which we also do in this system. An initiative is just your reflex score, and you add a d6. You roll that d6, add them together, and that's what you get.
Beautiful, amazing.
It's very easy. That d6 does explode, just like every other part of the game. So if you roll 1d6 and it explodes a bunch, you could end up with a very high initiative score. But generally, they're around, 5 or 6 usually, because it's
love it. And what happens if you roll really high in initiative and you don't know what you want to do yet and you want to delay your turn?
You can delay. It will adjust permanently adjust where you are in the initiative order, but you can absolutely hold your action if you decide. You're like, I don't know what happened. It exploded 3 times and I ended up with a score of 24 and I don't know what to do with it. You can just hold off, and then it'll just put you in a different spot in the order.
Beautiful. Amazing. And once it is your turn in initiative, you've got your primary action, your secondary action, and your bonus action, which you can use.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, these are pretty loose. A primary action would be any kind of challenge roll or a rote. Usually, if you're activating a wonder, it's also probably a primary action.
Right, probably.
Your secondary action is usually like moving. You want to move to a different place. It doesn't necessarily have to be. And then your bonus action, usually we actually have that in there because there are some wonders that specify that they are a bonus action. It's picking something up, it's swapping a weapon. If you're, doing something like that, it's, I don't know, changing your shirt. I don't know.
Yeah. I do want to stress for people who maybe are more familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, the bonus action in the Crown is more like the free action in Dungeons and Dragons.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yelling at your cohorts.
Yes. Always extremely necessary, for sure.
There's actually a wonder in here called Whisper that you can just speak directly into someone's ear if they're farther away from you. So that could be a bonus action. Yeah.
Extremely, extremely useful. I think on the next slide, we might have some more information on stuff that is an action. Yeah.
More action stuff? Is that the breakdown?
Yes, this is basically just exactly what you just said, so I love that.
Great. Very easy. We did it!
Yeah, woo, go us. Amazing. Yeah, performing a rote, some wonders, challenge rolls, and then attacking, of course, as well.
Yeah, so kicking somebody to the moon, definitely a primary action.
Yes. The other thing that I really like about the Crown and that I find very interesting is that it is, I love when games just do range increments instead of just like pulling out a battle map and going, okay, you are 65 feet from the enemy. This game, which we'll see on the next slide, just has categories for how far away you are from people. If we want to hit that next slide.
Yeah. Reach is touching. I can reach you. I can't quite reach you, but I'm near. I'm too far to reach you. Or I am god distance away. I can reach you with my god stuff, but not with my physical body. Very easy.
Yeah. Makes things just flow so easily. Okay, you are within, reaching distance of this person.
Mhm.
You are close to them, but you're not that close. And you
Well,
are
and
far from them.
especially when you're doing combat, if you are doing combat with another god, for example, like people
What does
can
65 feet matter?
right,
You
like
know?
you can get so far away because of the fact that everybody could do a rote where they can pay enough aether to reach them a mile away, 100 miles away. So battle maps would not be useful in this scenario.
It's always good to know about your game what is going to work and what is not going to
Just not
work.
gonna work. I mean, I think it would be really fun to have minis of your god, but I don't think you would use them for anything other than like reference.
Yeah.
Like,
Listen, and here's
this
the
is me.
thing, folks. If you can't draw yourself, commission a talented artist to draw a picture of your god for you. That's my
Do it.
advice.
It's so much fun to see yourself as a god. Do it.
Commission your character art from people. It's so
From
worth it.
people. Yes. All right.
Amazing.
Back to kicking people to the moon. So sorry.
Yes. We get easily sidetracked here on Rough Start. It's okay. I think so. Range is pretty straightforward.
Yep.
I think we can move on to sundries, which I mentioned very briefly.
Mhm.
This is defense and damage reduction.
Yeah.
So defense is an indicator of how difficult a character is to hit. It's the attacker's challenge difficulty when attempting to hit them. And damage reduction is acquired through armor, which is a wonder in this game. So you acquire a wonder that is armor, and it lowers the amount of damage you take from any successful attack.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, in order to, if I have a defense of 1, let's say I have a defense of 1, and I have a damage reduction of 2. So, if somebody is trying to hit me, they roll their dice pool. They have to get at least 2 successes in order to even hit me, because the first one is soaked by my defense. So then whatever their weapon does with that 1 hit is reduced by 2 because my damage reduction is 2. So maybe 1 or 2 things sneaks through in that particular instance, which then I can soak with my god juice.
There you go.
Aether.
See, it's all connected, folks. It's
all connected. Full circle to god juice.
So, a question then on defense. If your defense is 1 and the attacker gets, say, 3 successes, does that count as 2 hits against you since 1 is soaked up by defense?
So,
or is it all just 1 hit?
It counts as 1 hit, but each additional hit will be 1 extra damage.
Gotcha.
So let's say I have 0 defense. Well, you always are with 1 defense. Okay, so you have 1 defense, and then I had no damage reduction. They rolled 3 successes, and their weapon does 4. So 1 of those is soaked. So 2 successes means this one counts as 4 plus 1. So they would do 5 points of damage to me.
Beautiful. Amazing.
It is the only really crunchy part of the game.
But, when you explain it with the fingers, it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense.
All the fingers. Just put them up, and then those cancel, and then there we go. Okay. Yeah. Everybody use whatever chart or fingers that is the best for your brain, and then go from there. Absolutely. Or just ask your storyteller, how much did they hit me for? Just do it.
And they'll tell you a number, and it'll be fine. It'll
be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So when you do get hit, when your armor, when stuff gets past your armor, taking damage, losing health, you kind of, in your example, you definitely went over this. That number by default is subtracted from your health pool.
Correct?
But your god juice, as you said, can soak up that damage as well.
Yes. Yeah. Soak it right up. Which you want to do because your squishy human body probably doesn't have very much health. This isn't like the D&D system where you're like, I have 145 health points, because it is sort of split out into your aether pool, and then your very like villager body, which is because that's what you all were prior to becoming a god.
Just little peasants.
Yeah, so you don't want to actually take that damage to your human body. It takes a long time to try to heal that up. And well, am I jumping the gun if we get to god death?
No. We've got stillness up on the slide right now. So if we want to talk about stillness and death, you are so on track.
Yeah, so stillness is what happens when your health reaches 0. If somehow we go through all of your aether pool and your physical body starts taking damage and it drops you down to 0, you go into a thing called stillness. It is very, very hard to kill a god. It is not impossible, but like so difficult that it requires a god that is much stronger than you are. Or you have to like blow yourself up with a ritual by accident. But so when you go into stillness, your purview manifests around you like a cocoon, and it just keeps your body safe while slowly your aether replenishes enough to wake you up and heal you. As a low
Keyword
level
slowly.
god, slowly, yeah. You're not regaining like very much at a time in order to do that. Like it just like leaks back in as it repairs your physical body, and then also you reach your aether pool and you have to get up to half. Which as a low level god might only take you 1 day, maybe 2 days. But if you were a higher level god, to get up to half of your pool could take, a week or 2, depending on what your replenishment level is. And during that time, you're just cocooned in whatever could be very pretty. It could be very horrifying, depending on what your purview is. Like, as the god of joy, mine looks like a rainbow. It's lovely. I do not want to see what the god of madness's cocoon looks like. That.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
But you are also a little vulnerable in that you can continue to take damage. Which would, and it comes off your aether, which would mean that there's a possibility that somebody could keep you in stillness for longer if they wanted to. But
Yes,
that's maybe
absolutely.
in an after dark situation that might be in the spooky part.
The spooky part. Yeah, and then so coming out of stillness, you also gain a purview manifestation.
Yeah, something just happens to you all the time that is like related to your purview. The god of cinnamon has a purview manifestation because he was cocooned once, and it's that he just has like a cinnamon cloud around him all the time, like Pigpen from Charlie Brown. Just like a little, just like always kind of sloughing off cinnamon. And the older a god gets, the higher a chance it is that they will have several purview manifestations. Some of them can be quite aesthetic and lovely, and then, like, again, depending on your purview, some of them could be very annoying or pretty scary to look at.
Do the crowns coming out of the Clade's heads count as purview manifestations?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's how powerful they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have a bunch of other very scary things that happen to them because of it. Like the loop, maybe she's not as scary. She's maybe the least scary, if you will. But the loop is in charge of cyclical things, and she her appearance, including her hair and her clothing and everything, changes depending on what season it is. And that is a very outward purview manifestation of like the changing of the season and that cycle.
Amazing. So that's stillness. What about death? How does that work in this game? Does it work in this game?
Yeah. So we have built into it that death needs to be a conversation between the storyteller and the player. This is not going to be a situation where you accidentally did something foolish and rolled off a cliff and now your character is dead.
Mm-hmm.
This is it's not left up to the chance of the dice or anything. If you choose to have your god die narratively, then that is how it works. There's also sort of, as gods, you have the knowledge that it is very, very hard to kill you. And some gods do choose to like be done and pass away. But it is always got to be a player choice. That is really important to us. It's, I think, very frustrating as a player to build a character that you love and like become very attached to, and then have, you know, somebody take a lucky pot shot, and then you've dropped to 0 and you fail all your death saves and it's over. And that's super frustrating. And we want to bypass that as much as possible. So death is absolutely like a rule variant. You can decide that death is in there mechanically, but it needs to be something that you have discussed as a table.
Absolutely. And that's just, I mean, that's just good manners, good table manners for any game, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
Fantastic. Wow, we blew through conflict. Is there anything else you want to add? I do. Well, so the reason it was titled conflict in my notes is because it's not really just combat. Like a lot of the rules are about combat, but it really goes back to controlled versus stressful situations. I feel like there could easily be a conflict that is, tense negotiations between gods, and that is
absolutely
definitely a conflict.
Well, and I think that this system, we have the combat rules because I think you need them. We wanted to make sure that there was a system in place because I do know that there are players that are really into it and they're like, oh yeah, I am gonna level this city block with this combat rules. But the game, I think, really lends itself to figuring things out in a more narrative fashion, or a lot of times, maybe the first time that we are running with new players, they do the very polite thing that they feel like they are supposed to do, where they're like, okay, I rolled initiative and it is my turn and I have a bat and I'm going to hit the bad guy with the bat. And then, I do 4 damage, and then they go chunk, 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 and you get about 2 rounds in and somebody's like, this is dumb. I'm going to do a rote that throws him out the window. And then you're like, great. Combat is over. It is more about figuring out how your character can use what is at their disposal. We have the rules because we felt like we needed to have them, but like the game itself really supports you like not having any combat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it sounds like combat is often very short in this game.
It can be super short. Yeah, like unless you're fighting a god, but even then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
potato, you know? That's what I always say.
Yeah.
Fighting
If you're
gods and
fighting the
whatnot.
god of potatoes,
Yes. That
very
would be
weird.
me. The god of potatoes.
You have so many gods to choose from. You're
Yeah,
like, just
listen,
keep
I
picking.
took that wonder that lets me have multiple previews.
Yes. More and
uh
more.
Beautiful. So that's combat. I believe the last slide in our little adventure today is advice for running the game. The floor is
Yeah.
yours because I've never run this
Wow.
game before. I don't have any advice.
Yeah. I mean, I think in this game, especially, like, your safety tools are really important.
Mm-hmm.
You want to establish the tone at the start of the game, because if you have someone at the table who is not comfortable with a particular thing, like, if this game can go very easily into body horror or surrealism, or I know that there is a lot of pushback against, like, taking player agency away, but when you are dealing with gods, a lot of times you could fail a roll and a god could be in your brain, adjusting things in there, rearranging some stuff.
Yep.
And so I think first and foremost important piece of advice is just to make sure that everybody at your table is on the same page, and to do regular check-ins in
Yes.
different places. But
And
running
real
this game
talk,
is, yeah.
like, once again, just good table manners. I mean, every table that I run, I list the themes of the game and then
Hmm.
like media inspiration so people have touchstones for it.
Yep.
And like that is just something that everyone should be doing all the time for every game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that this game could be very goofy if you needed it to be, but it has undertones in it that could get very, very serious and could touch on a lot of things that people are uncomfortable with. So you got to make sure that everybody's cool with it.
For
Um,
sure.
and then I really just think that you kind of, as the storyteller, just need to be so comfortable with pivoting. Um, your players will surprise you, because there is no way to really discover everything that they could do. Like,
Mm,
you can't be inside everybody's brain, and
yeah.
they're gonna hit you with weird stuff. Um, God of Cinnamon ended a combat by doing the cinnamon challenge in somebody's mouth, just like fully filling it up with cinnamon. It's very effective. And it's so hard to think of all of the things that your players could be doing.
Yes.
Um, and so I think that you have to be very present. I have so many things in my book. These are all the pages that I was using at the last game that I was running. Is I just, like, kind of, I make sure that there's a place in combat that is set up. I have a couple of wonders like marked. I have a area in the bestiary that I have marked, so that if I needed a quick enemy for some reason, that I would be able to grab it. Um, I think the beauty of this game, and I understand that I helped to make it, so take it with a grain of salt, but, like, is that it is so supportive of the most insane player shenanigans. Like, and as a storyteller, you have to be, like, the biggest cheerleader and the biggest yes-ander, because they're gonna take you places that you were not expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, just, like, having it in front of you and just being, like, willing to jump in feet first. Um, yeah. Mechanically, oh, and I guess being decisive about how something is
Mm,
gonna work.
yeah, I see that for sure.
Yeah, just, like, if you if you spend, it's going to break the flow, and I think of this in every system, honestly. If you are not exactly sure how something is supposed to resolve mechanically, just being willing to just make the choice and adjudicate it, and then maybe between sessions be like, make a note and be like, oh, I don't know that I did that right, and come back next time and be like, hey, I didn't do that right, we're gonna fix it this time. But like, I think burying yourself in the book is sometimes really detrimental to the flow of the game.
Yeah.
So I want you to buy the book. I just don't want you to be trapped in it while you're playing.
There's a fine line. There's a fine line. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because once again, the rules are changeable. They're throw-outable. You know, but it's always good to admit when you've made a mistake as a game master. You just say, hey, last session, I fucked it up and I don't like
I did it bad.
Yeah. And we're gonna rewind and we're gonna do it again.
I was the god of oops. And
the god of mistakes.
God of mistakes. Just small ones. I was the god of small whoopsies and
whoopsie daisies.
And we have fixed it. I have upgraded my purview to the god of no mistakes this time. Ooh.
Well, it's okay, you know, even if we do make mistakes. Even gods make mistakes. It's okay.
Even gods make mistakes. They used to be people, too.
Messy people.
Gods used to be people, too. Should be another t-shirt.
What if God was one of us?
What if?
Fantastic. I think that's all wonderful advice. As we reach the end of our episode, is there anything else that you want to add before we close it out for the night?
Oh gosh. I'm
That's
just
a big
like
question,
super proud of this. Yeah, I'm super proud of the game, and I am gonna say that in a very short amount of time, we are launching our Patreon. It's going to be launched in October for formerly Feral Games. And if you loved any of the lore that I said today, one of the tiers is just like lore dumps, and it's going to have a bunch of more lore, other gods in the city that you can interact with, other items that you can pick up, new wonders. It's a lot of really cool stuff. So if you are at all interested in that, you could toss us a couple bucks on our Patreon as soon as it launches on October 10th, because 10.
Oh, 10/10, in fact.
10/10.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. The themes.
So yeah, our Kickstarter launched on October 10th at 10 a.m.
That's cute. It's cute, folks. It's cute. We like it. We like it.
We're so cute. Give us money.
Well, I'm cute. You should give me money too.
Great. Charlotte's also cute. Give Charlotte money too.
I don't want to be left out.
No, you will not be left out. I would never.
Amazing. All right, I don't want to. We're gonna stop the groveling. No more groveling.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
All right, I think that is it for the crown. If you've made it this far in the video, let me know in the comments below what you would be the god of. We made a lot of jokes here tonight, but really in my soul, I would be the god of bread. That's just what it is.
Yeah. I love bread.
What about you, Sarah?
You would be so popular, buddy. You would have a lot of followers, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I actually am in the book. My god is in the book. I am the god of joy, and if you go to page 66, I'm in there, and it's very clearly me.
Oh my god, that is so you.
Where am I? There I am.
Oh my god.
Yep. That's me. We had a fabulous artist. Drew me as the god of joy. Very exciting. If I wasn't the god of joy, I think I would be the god of bees.
Ooh, bees.
I just really like bees.
Well, bees are wonderful pollinators. You gotta hand it to them, for sure.
They're great.
Amazing. I love it. And I believe you can find the crown at formerlyferalgames.com. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
That is
Beautiful.
correct.
Yay!
Yeah,
So
and
download the game, buy the book.
Buy the book.
Um,
It's so pretty. Oh, also we have a I don't think I have any near me because I'm very smart, but we do have a set of oracle cards that you can use in play. They are the 10
Ooh.
clade members. And if you are vacillating on who you want to be bonded to, you could draw from the oracle deck. You can also draw from the oracle deck during play if, as a storyteller, if you need an extra little bump of, I'm not sure what to do here, so this god intervened in some way and left a sign. You could do that too. So,
That's the storyteller's version of God Juice.
God
It's the
juice. It is the
oracle deck. Yeah.
storyteller God juice. Oh,
Yeah.
Damon's gonna hate that, and I can't wait to tell him.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. You're helping.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think we can close it out. I have been Charlotte. You can find me online at the Cornbread with a B. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Pixies and Pins all over the place, and my website is pixiesandpins.com, and all of my exploits are there.
Amazing. Thank you again so much for joining me. This game seems so fun, and I had a hoot talking about it with you. I must play it now. We got to think of something to do.
Please.
Yes.
Yeah, let's play it.
Let's do it. Yes. Okay, we're doing it. Amazing. And thank you everyone out there for watching. Rough Start will be going up every other Tuesday, so feel free to hit that subscribe button and notification bell if you want to stay up to date. And if you liked this video, please feel free to like the video as well. And until next time, gods be with ye. Woohoo!
Oh, I love
Bye,
it.
everybody.
Bye.